In terms of the maintenance, there's some things that you'll need to do on a daily basis, some things you'll need to do every few days, some things that you'll need to do on a weekly basis, and other things that you'll need to do every month and a half to every 2 months, somewhere in that region. What are you trying to do when you do the maintenance? Well, there's a couple of things that you're really trying to clean and keep away from the system. The first thing is the powder. You don't want a build-up of powder getting into the electronics or any other areas like that that could cause issues. So make sure, certainly on a daily basis, if not a few times each day, you use a hoover or a small brush and hoover around the system, making sure that you keep the amount of excess powder on the system to an absolute minimum. The second thing that you're trying to achieve when you do the maintenance is to keep the build-up of the glycol oil to an absolute minimum. The glycol oil is a byproduct of the DTF process. It comes out of the ink from the DTF ink as it's cured. It evaporates off. That then condenses onto cooling surfaces as they cool, and that build-up of glycol oil could cause problems if you don't keep that to a minimum. So how do you keep that glycol oil build-up to a minimum? Well, firstly, at the end of each use, after you finish using the system, leave the heat function and the feed function both active. During that 30 minutes, the smoke is then extracted and through the filters, so the contaminants are collected, and it avoids allowing that smoke to condense on cooler surfaces and turn into glycol oil that can cause problems. On a weekly basis, open the oven hood and clean inside and wipe down any buildup of glycol or moisture, and use a degreasing spray or a household cleaning product to remove the grease from inside the system. Now, as you can imagine, during that extraction process, there's filters inside the system that will collect those contaminants, collect that smoke, collect that glycol, and they will need to be changed every so often to enable them to continue doing that process effectively. So, the cleaning process. On a weekly basis, you're going to wear a pair of gloves to protect your skin. You're going to use some sort of degreasing agent. We use a degreaser diluted with water. However, any sort of household cleaning products, particularly kitchen cleaning products that are designed to remove grease, will help. And what you're going to do is, once the system has fully cooled so that you don't burn yourself, you're going to use that degreaser, a degreasing agent, and some sort of cloth, and you're going to clean every accessible metal panel inside the hood. Pay particular attention, however, to the areas just at the front. If you hook back on yourself, you'll realise there's a lip, and that's where the glycol oil can condense and build up. And again, at the back of the hood, there's another lip, again where that glycol oil can condense and build up. So pay particular attention to those areas there. So I'm going to give that a bit of a clean. Another quick health and safety warning, just be very careful where metal panels are concerned, because you don't want to end up hurting yourself or cutting yourself. So just use caution with that regard, as well as the temperature. One of the key parts of keeping the glycol oil build-up in the system to an absolute minimum is to ensure that every so often, probably once every couple of days or so, you drain the oil collection tap. So here's the tap. It comes out of this corner of the system at the exit to the system just here. Now, you can use a tray or a bottle to ensure that that goes into, so it doesn't then go on the floor and cause a health and safety issue there. And then once you've popped the tray under the tap, or the bottle under the tap, you can open the tap. At the moment the tap is closed, that's with the tap 90 degrees to the opening to the tube. If you then turn the tap so that it is in line with the tube, there you go, you'll see that the glycol oil then drains out of the system. Now, You can do this in one of two ways. You could leave, if you've got a small enough container or a small enough bottle, you can leave that open in that container and just permanently leave it open. Or you can do this every couple of days, come to it and drain it every 2 days or so. As discussed earlier in the video, there are filters in the system to collect the contaminants before the air is then released back into the environment. To access and change those filters, you'll need to remove this side panel. There is a thumb screw at the bottom, although it does have a slot for a screwdriver to make life slightly easier. Phillips head if you are using a screwdriver. Lift that panel off. And you'll find 2 more thumb screws on top of a panel that has 2 filter outlets. Again, these have a screwdriver slot to make it easier to remove them, but this can be done by hand. It's just easier with a screwdriver. The frequency the filters need to be changed is once every 6 weeks for heavy use of the system, once every 12 weeks if you're not using it quite so often. Once you remove those 2 thumb screws, lift this panel up here that has the fan power cord going into it. There's a fan inside there. Just place that aside and just rest it up against something so it doesn't fall. And then you'll see you can access the filters. There are 2 filters. There's a paper filter on the top, so you literally just grab that, slide it straight forwards, and that will come out like that. And then you can lift up and pull out the carbon filter. Get your new filters. Carbon filter goes in on the bottom, so it's exact opposite of how you took them out. Carbon filter going in on the bottom, paper filter on the top. Something to note is that the sponge seals at the top of the filters sit on the top of both filters. So the seal on the top of the carbon filter seals up to the bottom of the paper filter, and the seal on top of the paper filter stays on the top as well. Slide that back in, push that in with your new filters, and then it's a case of replacing this panel. Now, there are leading edges on the bottom of this panel, and there are slots on the bottom of the housing. Those leading edges need to slot into those slots, and this is quite challenging. You may need to tilt the panel and just work the panel until those leading edges slot into those slots. You'll then see when that's in the correct position, the 2 screw holes line up with the threaded holes on the system behind. Your 2 thumb screws, again you can use a screwdriver to make this easier, then secure those in. And that's your filters replaced, so you can then reseat the outside panel. And just pull this connection cable for the fans out of the way. Hook the panel back on, make sure the hole on the panel lines up with the hole for your thumb screw at the bottom. Again, you can use a Phillips head screwdriver to make this easier if you prefer. Tighten that up. And that's how to maintain your Adkins Inline Compact 600.